Good evening. How's everybody doing? Great to be learning with you on a Sunday, Yom Rishon. Let's light up the darkness. Who's in the house on a Sunday? Sharon in New Jersey. Joe in the Inland Empire, Nancy, North Carolina, Bella in Florida, Renee in Indiana, Melissa in Great Neck, Guy in Ohio. Hello from Johnny in Bethel Park, Pennsylvania. Welcome, Johnny. That's a new name. And Moishi in Brooklyn, Frank in San Pedro, Ilanit in Silver Spring, Chaim in Florida, Abel Bito in Panama, Ella in Southern California, Lester in Florida, Aoife in Florida, Gwen in Michigan, and Elise in Virginia. Welcome, everybody. Our daf tonight is page 79 here in Tractate Zevachim, the 29th volume of the Talmud. Tonight's episode of AT Daily is dedicated by Matthew Bartlett in honor and memory of all those that were kidnapped and or killed on October 7th, 2023, and in the hostage crisis after. Amen. We should always be remembering. And it's a changed world that we're living in now, and it's good to always remember. Matthew, thank you, and thank you for enabling us to share more Torah with more people around the world, and the merit of that, may you and all your loved ones be showered in blessings. We say Amen. 'Tis the season. If you would like to direct some of your hard-earned money toward a great tzedakah, a great charity, our non-profit, Accidental Talmudist. We share Jewish wisdom with the world. We make it accessible to everybody without dumbing it down. We have so much content in addition to our daily Talmud class. We have the weekly newsletter, which is amazing. Nina writes much of that and edits it. That's always free, comes out once a week. You can sign up on our website, accidentaltalmudist.org. There's always at least two Torah teachings from the weekly Torah portion, humor, history, so much more. There's so many people that are learning with us. So when you enable us to share more Torah with more people, it's fantastic. Bang for your charitable buck. Donate.accidentaltalmudist.org to donate to our annual campaign. And you can dedicate an episode of AT Daily. You see how at donate.accidentaltalmudist.org. Okay, we're at 79a, very short daf. We're about halfway through it. 79a, and continuing our discussion of Mishna number 5 here in chapter 8 of Tractate Zevachim. We've been talking about what happens when there are mixtures of liquids permitted and prohibited, or dedicated to the altar, but mixed with something that is blemished and can't go on the altar, etc. So about halfway down 79a, Rava says that the sages said that the status of an item in a mixture is determined by the taste, i.e., if the taste of one substance is noticeable in a mixture with another substance, it is not nullified. And the sages said that a prohibited item is nullified by the majority. And the sages also said that the status of an item in a mixture is determined by the appearance, i.e., if the appearance of a substance is recognizable in a mixture, it is not nullified, right? So generally speaking, things are going to be nullified by the majority, but if they're still recognizable in the majority, either through taste or color, then it won't be nullified. And Rava elaborates, with regard to a type of food mixed with food that is not of its own type, the nullification is determined by the taste. In the case of a type of food that is mixed with food of its own type, then the nullification is determined by the majority. And in a case where there is a possibility to determine the status of an item based on appearance, then the nullification is by appearance. Now, the Gemara returns to its discussion of the opinion of Reish Lakish that prohibited items such as pigul, nasar, and meat that became tamei, which we were talking about yesterday, pigul, an offering that was disqualified because at the outset, the one bringing it, the priest bringing it, had an intention to consume some of it beyond its designated time. Nasar, where it was slaughtered and sacrificed and its blood was presented properly, but the meat that was available for consumption ended up lasting beyond its designated time, and then someone ate it knowing that it had outlasted its deadline, right? Pigul is when you have that intention at the outset. Nasar is when it happens at the end. But either way, prohibited, that's pigul and nasar. And tamei meat, right? So meat of an offering that became tamei. Let's say that, somebody had some kind of, seminal emission while standing in the temple, or somebody dropped dead. And so there was a corpse there. And then the meat somehow came into contact with that dead person. So it became tamei, ritually impure. Remember always, when we talk about tumah and tahara, ritual impurity and purity, we're not in any way talking about germs or dirt or something that is visibly dirty or scathed in some way. We're talking about ritual impurity as defined by the Torah, that there are certain situations, there are certain people and certain things that impart ritual impurity, and then we have to deal with it, because meat that is tamei, that, for example, meat of a sin offering, should be eaten by priests in the temple. But if it becomes tamei, they cannot eat it. Okay, so things that are pigul, nasar, or tamei nullify one another. All right, and we don't know if they become mixed. We don't know which is which. And so we said yesterday that if a person then eats of this mixture, he's going to be exempt from lashes. He would only be subject to lashes if he was warned at the outset that, if you eat that, you're going to be subject to lashes, and then he does it anyway. But if there's this mixture of different prohibited items, they're all prohibited, but the warning can't tell him which one he's eating because they're mixed up, intermingled. Therefore, the warning won't be effective and he'll be exempt from lashes. It's still prohibited to eat it. He just won't be subject to lashes. So these things nullify each other. Now, because they're indistinguishable once they're in the mixture, and they're all prohibited by different prohibitions. So the Gemara notes, and Reish Lakish disagrees with the statement of Rabbi Elazar. As Rabbi Elazar says, just as items used in the performance of mitzvahs do not nullify one another, despite the fact that one is of greater volume than the other or imparts flavor to it, so too, items to which prohibitions apply do not nullify one another. And the Gemara adds, whom did you hear who says that items used in the performance of mitzvahs do not nullify one another? Well, this is Hillel, as it is taught in a Baraisa that they said about Hillel the elder, meaning the famous Hillel, that when eating the Pesach, right, so when the temple was standing and the Passover offering was brought, a lamb or a goat, in its first year, that people had registered to eat together on Passover night, and they all went to Jerusalem to do this, and the animal would be slaughtered on the afternoon before Passover begins, and then they would bring it to the place where that group was going to eat it, and they would roast it, and then they would eat it that night, right? That's the Pesach, and we haven't brought the Pesach, we haven't observed the Pesach offering since the Second Temple was destroyed nearly 2,000 years ago. But Hillel lived when the Second Temple was standing. So they said about Hillel the elder that when eating the Pesach matzah, right, which is obligated, we're obligated to eat matzah on the first night of Passover, and bitter herbs, which were obligated to eat on the first night of Passover. So when he would eat the Pesach, the matzah, and the bitter herbs on the first night of Passover, he would wrap them all at once and eat them together, because it was stated with regard to the Pesach, quote, in the Torah, they shall eat it with matzos and bitter herbs. That's Numbers 9:11, which indicates that these three foods should be eaten together. And Hillel was not concerned that the taste of the bitter herbs would nullify the taste of the matzah. Now, do we eat those foods together now? Well, first of all, we don't eat the lamb or the goat on Pesach since the temple was destroyed, because we can't bring the Pesach, right? We can't, even if you were to eat that kind of meat, it wouldn't be bringing the Pesach offering, slaughtering the temple, etc. But there is the Hillel sandwich, right? That we do eat matzah and bitter herbs together. Now, the law of that is a little bit interesting. This is how the law stands today. First, when the temple is standing, one wraps together matzah and bitter herbs and recites the blessing. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who has commanded us concerning the eating of matzahs and bitter herbs, and he eats them in the manner of Hillel. If he ate matzah by itself and bitter herbs by themselves, so he recites a separate blessing over each, since the Gemara in Tractate Pesachim does not reach a conclusion as to whether or not the law is in accordance with the opinion of Hillel. Right? Hillel eating all three together, that was his practice, and the sages disagree whether that was correct or not. Nowadays, one first eats matzah and says a blessing over that, and then bitter herbs and says a blessing over that, and subsequently takes another piece of matzah, which he wraps together with bitter herbs, and then he recites not a blessing, but the following statement, which we read in the Passover Haggadah every year, in remembrance of the temple in the manner of Hillel. Right? So we accord great honor to Hillel and remember him these 2,000 years later, and how he would eat that, what we now call the Hillel sandwich. Okay. But the point is that even though the bitter herbs might nullify the taste of the matzah when he ate them together, he wasn't concerned about that because he knew that he was eating this mixture. Now we're on page 79b. The Gemara continues its discussion of cases involving a mixture of one substance in contact with the same type of substance, in which, according to the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda in the Mishna, the prohibited substance is not nullified. Right? Because the problem is, if it's the same type of substance, how could you tell how much or how little of the prohibited substance is mixed in with the permitted substance? Since we know that some is mixed in, it's not nullified. The sages taught a baraisa in a case where a broken earthenware flask has absorbed the urine of a zav or zava, whose urine is a primary source of tumah, and which imparts tumah to one who carries it. So in such a case, if one poured water into this flask to clean it, after the first time and the second time one washed it, it remains tamei, but after the third time, it is tahor, as the impure urine has been expelled from the flask. It is not a permanent tumah. Now, the baraisa continues, in what case is this statement said? It is said when one placed water into the flask. But if you did not place water into it, but instead placed the urine of a ritually pure person into it, then even after the 10th time that he places this urine into the flask, it remains ritually impure, as one substance in contact with the same type of substance is not nullified. Now, there you can really see the illustration that it has nothing to do with something that is dirty or filled with germs or putrid or disgusting, right? The urine of a ritually pure person does not impart tumah. It's disgusting. We don't want to mix it into anything, that we might be eating or drinking, but it doesn't impart tumah. The urine of a zav imparts tumah because that person is tamei. And so while you could clean out that urine, and urine is considered like water in certain contexts, but not in this context, because the tumah came along with urine. And that's why, presumably, if you use some other liquid to clean out the flask and you did 3 or 4 rinsings, it would work just like water would work. But urine will never work, even the urine of a pure person, to take out the tumah that was imparted by the urine of a tamei person, simply because you're using the similar substance, right? And it can never be nullified, no matter how big the majority is, when you're talking about something that is tamei, and you're going to use the same type of liquid, even though it's tahor, to try and rinse it out. But if he did not place water into it, but instead placed the urine of a tahor, a ritually pure person, into it, then even after the 10th time he places the urine into the flask, it remains tamei, as one substance in contact with the same type of substance will not be nullified. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says, after the 3rd time, even though he did not place water into it, but rather urine, it is tahor. That's his minority opinion. And the Gemara comments, whom did you hear says that a substance in contact with the same type of substance is not nullified? Rabbi Yehuda. And therefore, he must be the first Tana of this Baraisa that we're quoting. And the Gemara raises a contradiction from another Baraisa with regard to flax that was woven by a nida, right, a woman who is menstruating, although it has absorbed the spittle of a nida, which imparts tumah by being carried, one who moves it remains tahor, ritually pure, as the spittle has dried. And something that is dry in this context cannot impart tumah. But if the flax was still moist, then one who moves it is rendered tamei due to the liquid of her mouth, i.e. the spittle of the nida. So Rabbi Yehuda says even one who wets the flax with water is rendered tamei due to the liquid of her mouth, meaning the spit. And this law applies even if he wet the flax a great deal, several times, as the water does not nullify and expel the spittle. And this apparently contradicts Rabbi Yehuda's claim with regard to the broken flask that was washed with water 3 times. So Rav Papa says, well, spittle is different than water, as it is thoroughly absorbed and adheres to the flax, and therefore washing the flax with water does not nullify the spittle. We're not going to get into the nuances and particularities of tumah and tahara with respect to liquids and not liquids, and different kinds of human liquids. Here the issue is whether something gets nullified in a majority or not, and it seems to depend on whether the majority is a different kind of liquid or the same kind of liquid. Now, the Mishna teaches if blood fit for presentation, right, meaning an sacrifice was brought in the holy temple, it was brought with the correct intention, it was an unblemished animal, they didn't mess it up when it was being slaughtered, when the blood was being collected, so it is fit for presentation on the altar. And it was mixed with the blood of unfit offerings, right? Perhaps it turned out that the animal was blemished and therefore it should not have been brought as an offering. And even though now you've collected its blood, you should not bring that blood to the altar. So there's a mixture of blood of a fit offering with blood of an unfit offering, and it's intermingled. What do? If it was just blood of a non-offering, a non-sacred offering, we already learned that you can bring that mixture to the altar because the non-sacred animal, okay, it's neither fit nor unfit, and so it just acts as, a carrier. But the blood of the fit offering, it's in that mixture, and so it should go to the altar. But now that we have blood of a fit offering mixed with blood of an unfit offering, we can't bring the mixture because we can't bring unfit blood to the altar, right? So if blood fit for presentation was mixed with the blood of unfit offerings, the entire mixture shall be poured into the temple courtyard drain. And similarly, if blood fit for presentation became mixed with blood of exudate, right, that extra blood that is not the blood of the soul, it shall be poured into the drain. Whereas Rabbi Eliezer deems the mixture fit for presentation. And the Gemara asks, with regard to what principle do the first Tana of our Mishnah and Rabbi Eliezer disagree? And Rav Zeved says they disagree with regard to the question of whether the sages issue a rabbinic decree of this kind with regard to the temple, right? Very interesting that the sages issued rabbinic decrees to protect us from coming to violate Torah laws. Generally, that's what rabbinic decrees are for. Rabbinic decrees, for the most part, did not apply in the Holy Temple. Why? Because that was the domain of the priests. And the priests had their own very carefully worked out traditions about how to make sure that they don't come to violate Torah laws in the Holy Temple. So the sages would certainly issue rulings of Torah law about what is and isn't okay to do in the temple, but additional rabbinic decrees were usually not given with respect to matters that took place in the Holy Temple. Right? So Rav Zeved says they disagree with regard to the question of whether the sages issue a rabbinic decree of this kind with regard to the temple. As one sage, the first Tana, holds that the sages issue a rabbinic decree with regard to the temple, and therefore one may not present this mixture of blood, lest one present a mixture that contains a majority of blood of unfit offerings or blood of exudate. And one sage, Rabbi Eliezer, holds that the sages do not issue a rabbinic decree with regard to the temple, and consequently this mixture of blood is fit for presentation. Rav Papa says that there is a different explanation of the dispute. Everyone agrees that the sages issue a rabbinic decree with regard to the temple, and therefore in a case where blood fit for the presentation was mixed with the blood of unfit offerings, Rabbi Eliezer agrees that it should be poured into the temple courtyard drain, and he deems the blood permitted only if it was mixed with blood of exudate, which is not unfit for the altar. It's just not what we normally bring. It's just we don't bring that. Right? But it isn't unfit, right? It can just act as like water, as a carrier along with the actual blood that needs to be presented. Rav Papa continues, and here they disagree with regard to the question of whether it is common for blood of exudate to be greater in quantity than the blood of the soul, i.e. the blood that emerges immediately following the slaughter of the animal. So one sage, the first Tana, holds that this is a common occurrence, and therefore the sages issued a decree concerning all mixtures of blood exudate and blood of the soul. And one sage, meaning Rabbi Eliezer, holds that this is not a common occurrence, and therefore the sages did not issue a decree concerning a mixture of this kind. Right? There are situations that happen now and then, and generally speaking, the sages don't issue a decree to protect us from coming to violate a Torah law in situations that are unusual. They only issue decrees for situations that come up with some regularity. So that's what they're disagreeing about here. So the Gemara comments, granted, according to the opinion of Rav Papa, that Rabbi Eliezer's lenient ruling applies only to a mixture with blood of exudate, but that he concedes to the first Tana that if the blood fit for presentation was mixed with the blood of unfit offerings, it would be poured down the temple courtyard drain. This explanation is consistent with that which the Mishna teaches, that if blood fit for presentation was mixed with the blood of unfit offerings, it shall be poured into the temple courtyard drain. If blood fit for presentation was mixed with blood of exudate, it shall be poured into the drain. In other words, the fact that the Mishnah separates these two cases into different clauses makes sense, as Rabbi Eliezer's ruling applies to only one of them. But according to the interpretation of Rav Zeved, that Rabbi Eliezer disagrees with regard to both cases, well then let the Mishnah combine them and teach them together as follows. If blood fit for presentation was mixed with the blood of unfit offerings or with the blood of exudate, the entire mixture shall be poured into the drain running through the temple courtyard, and Rabbi Eliezer deems the mixtures fit for presentation. The Gemara concludes, indeed, the wording of the Mishnah poses a difficulty to the explanation of Rav Zeved. And that concludes our discussion of Mishnah number 5 here in chapter 8 of Tractate Zevachim. We move on to Mishnah number 6. If the blood of unblemished offerings was mixed with the blood of blemished animals that are unfit for sacrifice, the entire mixture shall be poured into the temple courtyard drain, right? Because the blood of the blemished animals should not be presented on the altar. The blood of the unblemished animals should be, and it's a shame that now it got mixed with the blood of blemished animals, but there is no remedy. We can't intermingle them. We can't allow the blood of blemished animals to reach the altar, so we pour the mixture down the drain. This is the law when the fit and unfit blood were mixed in one vessel. By contrast, if a cup of the blood of a blemished offering was intermingled with cups of blood fit for offering, and it is unclear which blood is in the cup, right? So the bloods aren't mixed. It's that there's a cup of fit blood and a cup of unfit blood, and we don't know which cup is which. That's the issue, right? But the bloods are not actually intermingled. We just don't know which cup is which. In that situation, Rabbi Eliezer says, although it is prohibited to present all the blood due to the uncertainty, if it happened that a priest already sacrificed one cup, right, already brought one cup and sprinkled it, then the blood in all the other cups shall be sacrificed, as the blood that was already presented can be assumed to have been the one from the unfit cup, as the blood that was already presented can be assumed to have come from the unfit cup in the mixture. That's Rabbi Eliezer. Very lenient opinion. And the rabbis say, even if the blood in all the cups was sacrificed except for one of them, the remaining blood shall be poured into the temple courtyard drain, because you can't be sure that it is not blood from a blemished animal. Now, with regard to blood that is to be placed below the red line, right? Certain offerings, the blood is presented below the red line. Burnt offerings, other blood is presented above the red line. For example, sin offerings. Okay, let's see. With regard to blood that is to be placed below the red line, for example, blood of a burnt offering or a guilt offering or a peace offering that became mixed with blood that is to be placed above the red line, for example, blood of a sin offering. In this situation, Rabbi Eliezer says, the priest shall initially place the blood of the mixture above the red line for the sake of the sin offering, and I view the blood that was to be placed below that was in fact placed above as though it is water, and so the priest shall again place blood from the mixture below the red line. And the rabbis say it shall be poured into the temple courtyard drain. Even according to the rabbis, if the priest did not consult the authorities and place the blood above the red line, the offering is fit, and he should then place the remaining blood below the red line. After the fact, you can do it Rabbi Eliezer's way, basically. But lechatchila, initially, right, a priori, you don't do that, right? You follow the sages say you can't do that. Now we're on page 80a. And we're continuing the Mishna. In a case of the blood of an offering that is to be placed on the altar with one placement, like a peace offering, that was mixed with blood of another offering that is to be placed on the altar with one placement, for example, the blood of a bechor, the firstborn offering, with the blood of another bechor, or the blood of an animal tithe offering, so the blood shall be placed with one placement. In a case of the blood of an offering that is to be placed on the altar with four placements, like a sin offering, that was mixed with the blood of another offering that is to be placed on the altar with four placements. So, for example, the blood of a sin offering was mixed with another sin offering, or the blood of a burnt offering, or that of a peace offering. That's four placements. These other ones are one. So then the blood shall be placed with four placements. Because it's blood of four placements got mixed with other blood of four placements, you can still do the four placements. Or blood of one placement was mixed with blood of one placement, even though they're different kinds of offerings, but they're handled the same way at the altar, you can continue the presentation. But if the blood of an offering that is to be placed on the altar with four placements was mixed with the blood of an offering that is to be placed on the altar with one placement, Rabbi Eliezer says the blood shall be placed with four placements and you can get it done. Rabbi Yehoshua says the blood shall be placed with one placement, as the priest fulfills the requirement even with one placement after the fact. Right? We learned that this blood of a sin offering needs four placements, but if you only did one placement, the obligation of the owner has been fulfilled, because it's really the first placement that achieves whatever that offering was brought to achieve. Rabbi Eliezer said to Rabbi Yehoshua, according to your opinion, the priest violates the prohibition of do not diminish. As it is written, all these matters that I command you that you shall observe to do, you shall not add thereto nor diminish from it. One may not diminish the number of required placements from 4 to 1. Rabbi Yehoshua said to Rabbi Eliezer, well, according to your opinion, the priest violates the prohibition of do not add, derived from the same verse. One may not add to the one required placement and place 4. Rabbi Eliezer said back to Rabbi Yehoshua, the prohibition of do not add is stated only in a case where the blood is by itself, not when it is in a mixture. So, of course, Rabbi Yehoshua said to Rabbi Eliezer, well, likewise, the prohibition of do not diminish is stated only in a case where the blood is by itself and not in a mixture. And Rabbi Yehoshua also said, when you place 4 placements, you transgress the prohibition of do not add, and you performed a direct action. When you did not place 4 placements, but only 1, although you transgressed the prohibition do not diminish, you did not perform a direct action that violated a law. Rather, you just did nothing, right? By leaving out 3 placements. An active transgression is more severe than a passive transgression. So that's why Rabbi Yehoshua says better, if we're going to bring this mixture, just do 1 placement instead of 4. That's the Mishnah. Now we move on to the Gemara, and I'm actually almost done for today. So questions or comments, please get them in now. So the Mishnah teaches that according to the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer, if a cup containing the blood of blemished animals became intermingled with cups, right? Not the blood mixed together, but here's a cup with qualified blood from an unblemished animal. Here's a cup with unfit blood, right, from a blemished animal, and then we don't know which cup is which. The bloods are not actually mixed together. We just lost track of which cup is permitted to present on the altar and which is not. So the Mishnah said about that in the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer, if those cups became intermingled, then the blood of... so we should not present them on the altar. But if one of the cups was already presented on the altar, then we can assume that it was the unfit blood that was already presented, and we continue presenting the other cups, which we'll now assume are the fit blood. That was Rabbi Eliezer. Right, we're distinguishing between, these are 2 different people, Eliezer and Elazar. Right? So that was Rabbi Eliezer's opinion. Rabbi Elazar says Rabbi Eliezer permitted the rest of the cups only if they were sacrificed 2 by 2, as at least one of them is certainly permitted, but he did not permit them to be sacrificed 1 by 1, as he may be found, the priest may be found to have presented the blood of the prohibited cup by itself. Rav Dimi raised an objection from the Mishnah. And the rabbis say that even if the blood in all the cups was sacrificed except for the blood in one of them, the blood shall be poured into the temple courtyard drain. And this indicates that even in this case, where only 1 cup remains, Rabbi Eliezer disagrees with the rabbis and permits the blood in the cup to be presented. Rabbi Yaakov said to Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Tachlifa, I will explain it to you. What does the Mishnah mean when it states except for the blood in one of them? It means in 1 pair of cups, 2 cups. As even Rabbi Eliezer did not permit the presentation of the cups 1 by 1, lest the priest do an action which is entirely prohibited. Now, the dispute between Rabbi Eliezer and the rabbis was also stated above with regard to a mixture of limbs from fit and unfit offerings. And the Gemara notes, and it is necessary for the Mishnah to teach this dispute with regard to both cases, as if it were stated only with regard to that, and it is necessary for the Mishnah to teach. Hold on. And it is necessary for the Mishnah to teach this dispute with regard to both cases, as if it were stated only with regard to that case of the limbs, one would have said that it is in that case alone that Rabbi Eliezer says that the rest of the limbs are sacrificed because the offering's atonement, i.e. the presenting of the blood, has already been performed, as the limbs are sacrificed after the blood has been presented. Burnt on the altar, meaning. But in this case, of the blood in the cups, say that Rabbi Eliezer concedes to the rabbis that the rest of the blood is unfit to be presented. And conversely, if the dispute were stated only with regard to this case of the cups, one would have said that it is in this case alone that the rabbis say that the blood in the rest of the cups is unfit. But in that case of the limbs, say that the rabbis concede to Rabbi Eliezer that the rest of the limbs are fit to be sacrificed as the blood has already been presented. Therefore, it was necessary for the Mishnah to state the dispute apply to state that the it was necessary for the Mishnah to state that the dispute applies in both cases. That's where we will stop for today. A couple of comments. Lester, why a broken flask, right? When they were talking about washing out this broken earthenware flask to render it tahor because it came into contact with the urine of a zav that made it tamei. I didn't do my homework so that I could answer this question. Seems to me that they're saying broken because if it was a whole flask that something tamei fell into, it could not be made tahor. It's the fact that it's broken is to teach you that it now exists as a shard. And a shard does not have the same stringencies as a whole flask. I could be entirely wrong, but that is my sense of the answer to your question, right? That's off the top of my head. I think that's why. Okay, Sharon. In wound care these days, exudate, I guess what is referred to as exudate, is not blood at all, but non-blood fluids that are oozing from an open wound. Is this other blood that which is in contact with wound blood? Well, I mean, what we're talking about in the Gemara, right, exudate is that when an animal was slaughtered in the temple, right, and so it would be one cut across the neck, right, blood would pour out, and the animal would die. So that blood that pours out is the blood of the soul, and that's the blood that needed to be collected in a service vessel, conveyed to the altar, and then sprinkled on the altar from that blood of the soul, meaning the blood by which the animal died when it bled out. After the animal is dead, any further blood that comes out of the animal, that's exudate, and that what they're talking about is exudate, and that blood is unfit for the altar. That is not the blood by which it died. That's essentially the blood of the carcass, right? And although that animal is fit to be burned on the altar, if it's a burnt offering or parts of that animal are going to be eaten by the priests, right? It still has sanctity, but that additional blood that is beyond the blood of the soul is not fit for sprinkling on the altar. And if it became mixed with blood of the soul, according to the majority, right, then you have to pour that down the drain. Sharon also says, since this blood mixture cannot reach the altar, I am assuming the entire sacrifice is nullified. What becomes of the animal? It's going to go to the place of burning, right? Since it was rendered unfit, they're not going to be able to burn it on the altar. They're not going to be able to eat the parts for a sin offering. If it already was placed on the altar, then we have that question of, do we take it off? Probably not, because this is not a severe enough transgression. But I thought where you were going to is also, since this offering is disqualified, and the blood was never presented on the altar, so even though it was slaughtered properly, it was brought properly, it was slaughtered properly, maybe even the blood was collected properly, but then it became mixed and never made its way to the altar, so the owner of the offering is going to have to bring another offering. Very tough break for the owner. Hopefully, the temple or the priests are going to help out with that. I don't know what that process was. We haven't run into that yet. We've had this question a bunch of times, but we haven't seen an answer yet. But the owner did not fulfill his obligation. That's what I've got for us today. And with God's help, we'll be together again tomorrow, Monday, at the regular Monday time, 6 p.m. Pacific. Have a